Thanks for watching my channel today. My name's Don, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about all the cars in my life, all the vehicles that I've owned. Uh, it's a funny thing when you reach a certain age. You start thinking back to different things you've done in your life, and in my case, I've owned a lot of vehicles. I'm sure a lot of you guys have too. Uh, and I've lost track of all of them that I've owned, to be honest with you. Over the years, I'd gotten in a habit where every year or two I would trade in a vehicle and get a new vehicle. Um, and I think it's fair to say that we forget most of them because there was nothing remarkable about them. But I want to start from the beginning and just kind of walk you through some of the vehicles, my cat, and some of the vehicles that I have. I started my life, my first vehicle, when I turned 16. It was a 1959 Buick. And for those of you that may remember the old Buicks, it was like a battleship. It had a huge bumper on the front and another one on the rear. It had big fins on it going out both sides. Uh, this thing was indestructible. Um, I actually taught half a dozen guys how to drive a car, including my younger brother. We used to take them out to a lake that wasn't too far away, and it had winding little roads all the way around the lake, and they were narrow. There's no way two cars could pass each other, but and they were pretty much tree lined. But I'd take them out, and we'd knock down trees, and I can't tell you how many trees we busted up and bruised, tore the bark off of. But but my little brother and a lot of my friends learned how to drive in that old Buick. Uh, and it when I think about it, it brings back a lot of memories. Uh, I did eventually graduate into some nicer cars, and yeah, I can still remember before I went in the service. One of the first cars that my wife and I bought was a 19 was a 1965 Mustang. Love to have that car today. Uh, it was a great car, and it was a fastback. And for those of you that are really into Mustangs, I mean, back in the 60s, that was just an incredible car. You probably, if you have one today, there's no comparison. But in the 60s, it was revolutionary. We only had it for a short period of time. I got drafted and we ended up, we sold the car. And when I got out of the service, my next car, uh, back then they used to send a check to your wife every month, uh, an allotment check. I think that's what they called it. Uh, and she worked the whole time I was in the service, but she also got these allotment checks. And of course, I spent every dime that I got while I was in the service. But she was pretty frugal. She still is, and she managed to save her money. And when I got out of the service, we were able to actually go to a car lot and buy a brand new car, which in 1970, that was pretty amazing. Um, so I bought a brand new Firebird. If you remember the Firebirds, what a car. This was just an incredible car. And I think it was like $3,100, and we paid cash. It was the first car I'd ever owned that we paid cash for. It was just an incredible car. I had that car for years. Put a racing stripe on it. I did all kinds of crazy stuff to it. Put the hood locks on it. Got special wheels for it. I really thought I was hot shit with that car. But eventually the kids came, and eventually we moved into bigger cars, and I mean, I went through everything in my lifetime. I mean, I had Cadillacs, I had I think it was 1979, thereabouts. I had one of the last big Lincoln Continentals. I was in the insurance business at the time, and a lot of guys I worked with had the big Lincolns, and so it was kind of a prestige thing back then. But but it was, it was a lot of fun going through all these different vehicles. Uh, but I want to touch on the fact that I had one vehicle that really stood out in my lifetime, and it was probably my favorite vehicle of all the vehicles I've ever owned, and I really have owned a lot of vehicles. Uh, in 1985, I was actually running my own publishing company at the time, and I was making pretty good money. And I decided I had always loved the looks of a Datsun 270 and sports car, and I was determined that's what I was going to have. And that year, they came out with a brand new model, and it was the Datsun 300ZX. Actually, I think they called it a Nissan Datsun Nissan, but it was a 300ZX, and it was called the Black Package. This thing was just incredible. Had the T-top, all black, interior, exterior. It always made me think of a wedge because of the shape. But what a car. This thing could take corners. I mean, it was just an incredible car. And I loved owning it. I'll never forget one time I pulled into the driveway, and I guess I left the motor running for some reason, uh, and I didn't get it in park. And when I opened the door, I left the door open because I was just going to run in the house and get something. And yeah, I looked out, and my car is rolling out of the driveway. And the only thing that stopped it was my door caught on the uh, on the bank, and it pretty much just tore the. It didn't tear it off, but it pretty much tore it pretty seriously. I had to have a lot of work done. But that was a great car. I loved having that car. And a number of years later, uh, I I was working in a lot of different states at the time, and one of the states that I was working in was North Carolina, in Charlotte. And I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I went out and I bought a Porsche. I'd always heard that, a Porsche is just, the absolute greatest driving vehicle. And and I thought, wouldn't it be something to have a Porsche and be able to go out here and tool around? And I thought, at the very least, it was probably going to be every bit as good as the Datsun 300ZX. So I went out and I bought a 928 Porsche or Porsche, 928 S Turbo, in silver. And I mean, I was really impressed with this vehicle. This was an incredible machine. So I drove it from Ohio, I drove it down to Charlotte, North Carolina, because I'd always heard that the mountains were the place to go. And if you had a car that you wanted to really, really test it out, see what it could do. And so I took it up in the mountains with a buddy of mine, and we run some of these here, you know, some of these curves were just incredible, and it handled them really well. But I got to tell you, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the Datsun 300 drove better. I think it was faster. I think it handled it better, the curves, uh, and just all around. If I had a choice between the two today, I there's no doubt I'd pick the Datsun 300ZX. I didn't keep the Porsche very long, and I'll tell you why. Uh, I had it back up in Ohio, and I took it to a car wash one day. I don't know why. Usually I wash my own vehicles, Of course, back then we used to do everything. We'd change the oil, we'd change the plugs, we'd put new brakes on. Those days are long gone. But I remember I took it to a car wash and ran it through the car wash. And when I came out the other side, the mirror on the right side, the rear view mirror, was just hanging by a wire. Like, holy shit. I mean, you guys tore my mirror off. So of course I went in, I raised hell with the management, and I was reminded by them that uh, they pointed to a big sign that said they weren't responsible for any damage or some other bullshit. Uh, so I just, I wasn't gonna fight it. I was upset, I was pissed off, but I thought, well, I'll just go get it fixed. So I take it over to the Porsche dealer, and they're going to take a look at it. And they give me an estimate. It was like $900. $900. This is back in the 80s. I mean, $900 was a lot of money, and it was just to fix, a rear view mirror, a side mirror. And I got it fixed. Scraped together the money, but $900 was a ton of money back in those days. It's a lot of money today, but it was a lot of money back then. And that's when I decided that I really can't afford to own and drive, a Porsche 928. It's just, it's just too expensive a vehicle for me. So anyway, since then I've owned so many vehicles. I've lost track. I've had the fancy custom vans with the big captain's chairs, and I've had dozens of trucks. At one point, probably for the last 20 years, I bought a new truck about every other year, and I get tired of the color, get tired of something, and I need to buy another one so it matches my boat or whatever stupid reason I had for it. But I do like trucks. I'm a big fan of Ford trucks, F-150s, and I know that'll probably bring some remarks. but don't ask me. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know a hell of a lot about vehicles. It's kind of like my boat. I just turn the key. If it starts, I'm good to go. If it doesn't start, I find a mechanic. So, but trucks, in the last 20 years, I've had a truck mainly because, some of these boats were just too big to pull with a car. Um, and even some of the cars that I've had, I ended up having another vehicle, having a second vehicle, a third vehicle with the truck so that I could pull the different boats that I've had in my lifetime. One last comment that I just thought of that I wanted to mention. When I was in the service, I didn't have a vehicle, and my wife didn't have a vehicle. She went back to live with her parents, and before I went overseas, I was stationed at Fort Knox for about 6 months, and I remember my wife was going to come down, and we were going to live off base until I got reassigned. And I didn't have a car, and back then, I mean, I I don't even remember what I used to get paid in the Army, but it seems like it was about $50 a month. I mean, it was some ridiculous amount of money. So it wasn't like I was going to go buy a new car with that kind of money. And my grandfather, and I don't remember how old he was, but he was probably in his mid to late 70s. But he offered me his car. And I never really gave it a lot of thought. I just thought, well, he's an old guy. He's probably going to quit driving anyway. So, but he gives me, I think it was a 56 or a 57 Chevy, I think it was. Or maybe it was a Ford. God, I can't even remember now. But it was really generous of him to do that. And I don't know if he had reached a point where he couldn't drive anymore, or he was just trying to help us out. I don't know, but But we drove that car back and forth from, Kentucky to Ohio probably 4 or 5 times, and it really served us well for the time that we had it until I get shipped overseas. But it was a very generous gift from him, and he was a great guy. I'm going to do a video about him someday. He was quite a character, as I suppose a lot of grandfathers are. Anyway, that's kind of the story of my vehicles and all the vehicles that I've owned. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably close to 50 or 60. And you think to yourself, my God, you're not that old. Well, there were a lot of times that I'd have two different vehicles in the same year, or I'd have two or three vehicles at the same time. I just liked having different vehicles. I could always justify it by the different things I happened to be doing at the time. And sometimes it came down to the needs of the family. And these weren't cars that I bought, for my wife, because she had cars of her own. Throughout our marriage, I think I always made sure that she had her own car. And it always amazed me because I was always ready to sell her car or trade it in because she'd keep it for a couple of years and it would have like, you know, 2,000 miles on it. And, it would look brand new because the only time she ever drove it was go to the doctor, take the kids to the doctor, or go to the store. But, eventually we would sell it and we always got a good price for it because she always kept it in such great condition. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sure you've got your own. Uh, if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and like the video. And if you would, please subscribe to my channel and, leave me a comment. Tell me about the cars that you've had and the ones you've enjoyed or not enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll be talking to you soon.